everyone, it's the Gossip Guy here. So as many of us grow more familiar with the Hedera Hashgraph public ledger, there still remains many topics where we have questions on. One in particular is cryptoeconomics and how fees will work on the network. So in order to gather further insights on this, I had the opportunity to speak with Paul Madsen from Swirlds, the Hashgraph company, in order to find out more. All right, Paul. So I guess our topic today is how do fees work on Hedera Hashgraph, or basically cryptoeconomics and how fees will work on the network. So Paul, maybe to kind of start things off, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Paul Madsen, I work at Swirlds. We're the company, I guess, at least initiating, taking Hashgraph to the market, both on the public side and the permission side. Sometimes I'm a technical lead, sometimes a technical architect. I have no idea what the distinction is, just what my business card says.
I guess a jack of all trades there.
Yeah, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales support, a little bit of analyst relations.
Or also a very important person in the Telegram channels.
Yeah, like put that on your business card and get
there you go. Okay. So Paul, maybe before we dive into our main topic today, do you mind just going over some fundamentals as it relates to the network? I guess one thing maybe to start off with is nodes. I guess like who are they within the public ledger? What's their role? Why do they exist? And then maybe how does one become a node within Hedera Hashgraph?
So we use node just to refer to the computers that will run the Hashgraph algorithm, right? The nature of a decentralized network is you need to decentralize. You can't have a single computer determining truth. You need multiple. And so for us, nodes are those computers that create consensus. We do it differently than blockchains, but the premise is the same. You distribute the responsibility and so mitigate the risk of any one of them going bad or some number. Now, on a public ledger, you need to worry about some of those nodes being bad. You need to plan for it. So we have a model where we get to a future healthy public network of, in the ideal, millions of nodes. But we necessarily need to get there in a gradual manner. So in the early days of the network, the plan is that we would have a small number of known nodes. Probably the initial members of the Hedera Council that will govern the platform will also run a node. And we'll start in that sort of permissioned model, and over time evolve to a model where anybody can be a node. And again, in the ideal, anybody can run a node in their basement, right? Their computer will be likely more than capable, their bandwidth will likely be more than capable of participating in consensus, which is different than how other public proof of work ledgers have turned out, right? There's been this arms race to powerful ASICs or GPUs.
Yep.
Hashgraph algorithm is simpler, less burdensome on the nodes. So ultimately we expect a more democratic distribution of computing power.
Yep. Just one quick question, Paul, like, if we don't know it right now, that's fine. But I guess like as far as like GPU requirements to become a node, is that something that's like available or that you guys have kind of settled on, or?
I think we're getting close. We haven't yet announced that. I've seen numbers. Yeah, at some point we'll sort of make clear what we expect that minimum capability set is. And it's not just processing power, right? The bandwidth is arguably more fundamental.
Yep. All right. So Paul, I also know too, another thing that's come up is around, proof of stake and how that's also going to be implemented within Hedera Hashgraph. Do you mind, obviously that's a topic that can go on for hours, but do you mind just kind of giving us a brief overview of how proof of stake will work in Hedera Hashgraph?
Sure. Like any other public ledger, you need to mitigate the risk of attacks where it's too cheap to be able to do so, right? So you want to make attacks expensive. You do that by requiring that attackers have some scarce resource, some stake, some coins. Everybody seems to be moving to that model, in effectively running away from proof of work as your scarce resource.
Yep.
But how you apply the stake, how you use the stake to mitigate Sybil attacks or other attacks can vary. Ours is a relatively simple stake model where the votes, the virtual votes that the Hashgraph algorithm is built upon in order to determine consensus. When we move to a public ledger, we'll just weight the votes that a particular node has towards consensus. We'll weight that by their relative proportion of stake or coins. So it's simpler because other stake models either add some sort of punitive risk or slashing condition to stake so that bad behavior is not prevented in a sense, it's discouraged by making it, adding to it the chance of losing coins. We don't have that complexity. Other stake models like delegated proof of stake uses stake not to directly influence consensus, but rather to influence who determines consensus, right? You vote, you elect your delegates and empower them with consensus. So again, a different way to use stake, potentially manipulable by all the ways that humans can be manipulated.
Yeah.
Elections, bribery, etc. So
yep.
Everybody, I think, is moving towards stake, but they'll use it in different ways.
Yeah. And just to follow up on the point that you just made too, around like delegated proof of stake. So I guess their Hashgraph is not a DPoS model, correct?
Correct. So what we have, as I said, is nodes will have a certain amount of stake, and that'll influence their votes towards consensus. But we also recognize that even though we hope to have millions of nodes, there are billions of humans and ultimately trillions of clients, devices, thermostats, etc.
Yep.
And those other actors will have stake as well. They'll have coins. And our security will be significantly improved if those coins also contribute towards stake, just because the implication is stake would be more evenly distributed. So we have a model that if I have coins or you have coins or stake, but you're not running a node, well, first we want you to run a node, but for your own reasons you might not. We also want to make it easy for you to, even not running a node, contribute towards consensus. So we have a model where you can proxy your stake to a node. That stake is used towards consensus, so we get security benefits of that stake, and we'll reward you accordingly. So you will benefit like the node will for effectively lending your coins to the network. So yeah, you'll get a monthly check. Got it.
Well, I guess this is a good transition into our main topic for today around how fees will work on the network. So I guess, from my understanding from the white paper, there's essentially 3 types of fees that will work in the public ledger. We have the fees to, we have the fees to the nodes, the transaction fees, and then ultimately the service fees that are paid to the network. So I guess, do you mind just kind of giving us a little bit of like a walkthrough of how those 3 work and any other information?
So sort of the context is we expect users of the platform, their software, their clients, who are going to ask the platform, comprised of millions of nodes ultimately, we expect it reasonable for them to pay fees for that service. I've got a transaction, I want it recorded, with a consensus time, I will pay some tiny minuscule fraction, but I will still pay somebody else for that service. So, and then those fees that users of the platform use will fund payments to the nodes that are actually running the consensus and those who are governing the platform as well. So we need to pool all the fees and then appropriately apportion those out to the nodes that did the work in recording those into the ledger. So we have, as you say, 3 different fees that are designed to accomplish that, but also recognize that different nodes did different amounts of work in coming to that consensus. So I'm a client, let's say I'm an iOS wallet app. I've got our wallet app on this phone. I'm not a node, but nevertheless, I want a transaction that I've just created necessarily with somebody else. I want that recorded into the ledger. I do so by asking a node to gossip this out, right? Hey node, this thing happened. I need you and all the other nodes who I'm not talking to at the moment to establish a consensus timestamp for this interaction or for this transaction. So I'm only talking to one node. That's the only person I can currently pay at the moment.
Right.
And I do so. I pay them a node fee. And that node fee is designed to acknowledge the node has costs in supporting an API that allows me to call it. But it also has costs, but it has to compensate indirectly all the other nodes that ultimately will support this transaction by doing a little bit of work and gossip and storage. So that node fee that I pay the first node that I'm talking to, potentially the only node that I'm directly talking to, is designed to compensate the other nodes that will do work in support of my transaction. The other 2 fees are designed to acknowledge that work that the other nodes do. So a transaction fee, necessarily smaller than that node fee that I've given to the first node, just recognizes that any node, anytime it gossips out a particular transaction on my behalf, in this case, it's got some costs. There's bandwidth, CPU, etc. So that's a small transaction fee. The other fee, we call it a service fee, and that recognizes that certain transactions imply a longer term cost in resources for all nodes. If I'm storing a file, well, then every node that stores that file on my behalf has storage costs, and we need to acknowledge that. So those are the logical fees. To accomplish that distribution of payments and to reward the nodes accordingly. The Hedera wallet plays a role in effectively aggregating those fees and then distributing them every 24 hours. But the premise is fundamentally that users of the platform pay fees and nodes are compensated accordingly based on their costs. And the fact that we have 3 fees is just designed to acknowledge that different nodes contribute differently and certain applications have different costs associated with them.
Right. Well, I guess there are incentives at the end of the day to make sure that everyone acts as good players within the network.
Well, right. We definitely want to recognize that it should be profitable to be a node. This is not a charity. We want people to be a node. So we want to both acknowledge their costs, but critically give them a profit margin on top. No one's going to do this just because they believe in the vision of a trust-free internet. I'm not.
Fair enough. So I guess also too, with all these fees that we've established, I guess who's kind of determining like the price or determining how much value each of these fees are going to be. So I guess like who is determining the fees on the network?
So we talked about 3 fees. The node fee, we expect that to be negotiated between the client and the node. So between my wallet app and the node.
Okay.
We expect that anybody who develops a wallet app, as an example, would probably also run a node. And so there's an existing relationship there, maybe where the node offers reduced fees to its own wallet relative to other wallets. So we expect, a market dynamic of competitive fees for that fee. The others, the transaction fee and the service fee, Hedera will set those and will in all likelihood tweak those as the network evolves to maintain the health of the network.
Right. And I guess when you say Hedera, I guess you're ultimately referring to the overall Hedera Hashgraph Council, the governing body that will be overseeing the network. Is that correct?
Yeah, and managing the financial health and viability of the network will be a key part of what that council does.
Yeah.
In addition to all the other things that will be, necessary to keep Hedera healthy.
Before we kind of like wrap up here, I know one thing that we had talked about before is just the overall service fee, to the network. I understand it's around like 10% that's essentially paid to Hedera Hashgraph. Do you mind just kind of giving some insights on that? Because I know that there's probably some people out there that have some different reactions to the governing model there. So it would help to clarify that.
Yeah. So to clarify that, I talked about how the fees that the client pays the node ultimately fund this pool that rewards the other nodes for participating in consensus. Well, it also funds payments towards those enterprises that have signed up to govern Hedera. Hedera is a for-profit venture. Again, it's not a charity. And so the enterprises that have committed their time and energy and expenses, flying people around the world to exciting locations, hopefully, those are real costs. And sending people to tech meetings to make the architectural decisions on how to evolve Hedera, real costs. So we reward them out of that out of that pool of fees as well.
Got it. Well, and then also too, I guess, Paul, I might have heard a little bit of gossip there in some of the chat channels and also on social media, but as far as fees, like I guess the tokens or the coin that would be offered to like the nodes, I guess, are you guys calling it HBAR or you might have heard some names thrown out there?
As far as I know, that is the current strongest contender. I tweeted it, so it must be official. There's an ASCII character or Unicode character, so that helps.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard other contenders as well. So
okay.
I wouldn't rush for anybody to try to reserve HBAR.org or something comparable.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wait and see. But for now, it's just gossip. So
which can be accurate, but
yeah. All right. So I guess, Paul, thank you very much for your time. I guess just before I let you go here, if someone wanted to get kind of further information on this or wanted to seek, take a deeper dive on this, what are some available resources out there that they could look to?
HederaHashgraph.com has the white paper, both the Hedera white paper and the original Hashgraph. YouTube has some great videos of Lehman, both walking through the Hashgraph algorithm, if you want to understand the fundamentals, but also answering questions, the sorts of questions we inevitably get about license and governance and motivation, etc. If you're interested in learning when the ICO is, I highly recommend the Telegram channel. It's all we seem to talk about.
And make sure to not harass Paul on the Telegram channels there.
I pick and choose when I participate or not. All good.
I know you've been quite active there. So
I answer what I can answer.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Paul, like I said before, greatly appreciative of your time and, appreciate you taking the time to walk us through, how networks will work there. I'm sure people will hopefully find this video interesting and, overall helpful.
My pleasure. Is
All
it
right.
GG? Do we call you GG? Is there a...
Oh, yeah. You can call me Gossip Guy.
All right. No, I think I'll go with GG. It kind of...
All right. Or double G.
Double G. There you go.
All right. Well, thanks, Paul, for your time, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining on the ride.
All right.